guys, welcome back to my channel. Today is going to be a update and kind of a story time vlog. I'll start from the beginning. So I haven't posted a lot lately because I just haven't really found inspiration to post anything, and also just like there's not a ton going on, but now there is. And I am 33 weeks pregnant today, so I am in my third trimester, obviously, still. Oh, he's kicking me. He's been kicking me a lot in the side here, which is so funny. Or like, actually he's punching because he's actually head down, and that's what we're gonna get into this video. So about like 5 weeks now, maybe even 6 weeks, he's been head down. My appointment 6 weeks ago, I was told that he was head down, and I'm like, oh my god, what does that mean? Like, why is he head down so far, like so soon? And then the doctor was like, oh, they move all the time, so I'm sure he'll move back up at some point. And then another 2 weeks passed, and it's like, no, he's still head down. And then today, he's obviously still head down. And I know this because of where he's sitting all the time, but also because of what happened to me this past weekend. So Thursday morning, I woke up feeling really, really sick. I felt like flu kind of sick, but like it wasn't the flu. Like I didn't have stomach issues. I didn't have like any kind of symptom that could suppose a flu. I had no fever, I had no chills. It was like I was having the flu. Peach, she's being really cute, trying to get my attention. It was like I was having the flu, but without all the other symptoms. It was like this super weird thing. I just felt really off. I'm like, oh, it's just probably pregnancy. Like, I'm now getting further into my third trimester. It's just probably what it is. And so I'm like, whatever, for Thursday. Come Friday, oh god, he's really punching me. Come Friday morning, I wake up at 6. I haven't really slept well. I haven't been sleeping well for a long time, but I like really didn't sleep the best I could have. I was waking up throughout the whole night, like just so annoyed. And like a couple weeks prior to this, I was feeling like crampy and feeling like, oh, this is probably Braxton Hicks. Like I'm in the time zone where Braxton Hicks starts. And so like it happened for like a day and a half. I had like cramping, and I chalked it up to be like ligament pain and just the uterus growing and such. And Braxton Hicks, like it's probably what's happening. And then so weeks passed, obviously hadn't had those symptoms again. And then all of a sudden, like 8:40 a.m., I had just eaten my oatmeal. Peach is making her appearance. I had just eaten my oatmeal. I had a glass of water, and I'm sitting on the couch just watching Southern Charm. Like what I always do is like on a Friday morning, I watch Southern Charm with my coffee, blah blah blah, decaf. And all of a sudden, I'm just sitting there watching TV, and I just feel a sharp pain right in my right rib. Like really, really sharp pain. And I'm like, what the heck? And then all of a sudden, like I blink and I see stars. Like it looked like black glitter is falling from the ceiling. I'm like, am I hallucinating? What the hell is going on here? I've never seen stars before, so I was assuming this is what stars was like. Like, you know, when you like are gonna faint or you pass out and you see stars before you do that. So I know those symptoms and I know what it's about. So I slowly got up. I slowly laid down to see, oh, maybe it's a head rush, even though I was sitting up already. Peach. Even though I was already sitting up. And so I was like, well, maybe I'll lay down. and it got way, way worse. Like, I felt really sick, sharp pain and stars. I'm like, what the hell is going on? And it freaked me out. So I'm like, okay, you know what I can do? I have an oxygen monitor and a heart monitor. Let me go and get it. So I slowly stood up, drank a bit of water, to the washroom. I could feel my heartbeat like going crazy. I'm trying to calm myself down. I put the monitor on and it's beating at 146. And I'm like, whoa, that is not normal. That is very, very high and that's dangerous. Like, they told me at the hospital when I had gone in the hospital before that if it reaches over 140, there's something wrong. And so I was immediately like, oh my God, I need to like calm myself down. My beat is way too high. And for about 2 to 3 minutes, it was staying within the 140s. And I'm like, what is going on? And so I immediately was like, okay, well, I can't be alone. Because, like, if I'm seeing stars, my heart rate's so high, I need to check my blood pressure. So I contacted my foster mom. And I'm like, I know I can't be alone right now. I'm pregnant. I'm in my 3rd trimester. I cannot be alone when this stuff is happening. I don't even know what's going on. So I go to my foster mom's, and immediately when I walk there, like, she lives like literally 2 minutes away, like she lives around the block, and like all of a sudden I just could not breathe. Like, it was like I could not breathe at all. Like, holding it in could never happen, and letting it go, it was like I needed to like do shallow breaths, and it was like really, really hard to breathe. So I sat down in her house. I tried the blood pressure monitor, and it said my blood pressure was 116/74, and I'm like, so I'm in the normal range, and I don't know why this is happening to me. And so I call my OB, and I'm like, hey, like, I left a message because they obviously couldn't answer right away. And so I waited around for that, but like, I ate some almonds to see if it was protein. I had orange juice to see if it was sugar induced, and like nothing was working. Like, I felt like I had like rocks on my chest, like rocks, like just chilling there. And so I just felt really unwell, and all of a sudden I started feeling nauseous, and I'm like, what is going on? And you guys know, like, this pregnancy has been pretty great for me so far, so it's like, oh, maybe it's just pregnancy symptoms, but like, they're not. These are like out of the ordinary, especially mixed with the stars. And so I was like, what am I going to do? Like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And then I, of course, was like, okay, I'll just sit here and wait for my OB to call me back, because like, that's the thing too, is that laying down made me feel worse. And so I was just sitting on the couch the whole time. I finally got in contact with the office, and they're like, call the on-call doctor, we're not sure what to do. And I'm like, okay. So I called the on-call doctor. I waited 2 hours for them, because this happened at 8:40 in the morning, and my doctor didn't call me until like 11:30. So it had been two and a half hours, well, I guess 2 hours since I called my OB. And then they were like, yeah, you need to come into the hospital. And like, on my way to the hospital, I had some tacos that were gluten-free and dairy-free and healthy. And I had my sister-in-law pick me up. She took me, and I couldn't breathe. I really, really couldn't breathe. It was really tough for me to breathe. And it wasn't normal, like the normal pregnancy thing where like, oh, like you just have him up high on you, and so he's like crushing your diaphragm. It was like, I could not breathe. Like, it was so difficult. Oh yeah, I also took a COVID test at my foster mom's before I got picked up to go to the hospital, because my foster mom was like, maybe you have COVID. And I'm like, I don't know, these symptoms aren't really COVID related, but we'll try. Peach, you're so cute. Mm. 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 And so I took the COVID test. This is the first time I've ever had to take the COVID test because I've never gotten it so far. Knock on wood. I haven't gotten it yet, and like, it of course came back negative, like, because there's no way I have COVID. But it was good that I screened myself before I went to the hospital, right? But then I just, like, on the way to the hospital, I'm like, I just don't feel well. Like, this doesn't feel normal. And then all of a sudden, like, I started feeling cramping in my right side, in my hip, and I'm like, what the heck is going on? Like, why would I have cramping in my hip? And then my sister-in-law was like, oh, maybe you're having Braxton Hicks, like, but, like, you don't have Braxton Hicks in your hip, so maybe you're in labor? And I'm like, there's no way I'm in labor. So I chalked it up as, Peach, get your ass down. I was like, yeah, it's probably just Braxton Hicks. But then it went away, like, really soon. Like, it was, like, there for, like, 3 minutes. And then so we were like, oh, maybe it was just the way I was sitting in the car. Whatever. So we get to the hospital. I get checked into labor and delivery, like, immediately. The on-call doctor that's there from my office was at the hospital delivering babies. So she was able to see me. So I got set up with the nurse, and then I had, like, the baby stress monitor on. And I was obviously alone. And because Tyler was at work, I'm just sitting there waiting for all these tests to be done, like my blood work and stuff like that. And, like, literally I just sat there for like 3 hours, and I'd gotten there at like 12:20. And so I had, like, was just sitting there, and they were trying to figure it out. They were stress monitoring the baby and me. Just, like, he's perfect. Like, he's moving. He has a great heartbeat. He's not stressed at all. Your blood pressure is great. Your vitals look good. Like, and, like, it just didn't make any sense. So we were waiting around for the blood to be drawn because there was, like, 7 people that didn't show up to work. So it was like, of course, the day I come in, there's like no staff. Anyways, the nurse I had was, like, absolutely a doll. I freaking loved her. She was, like, an older Indian woman, and she was, like, absolutely the sweetest thing ever. And I really hope I have her for my delivery because she was absolutely wonderful, and she was very informative, talked to me the whole time. It was just, like, really calming presence, which was really nice because I am, like, filled with anxiety, but, like, for some reason, being in the hospital, I didn't really have that for some reason. Like, normally when I go to the hospital, I'm like I'm, like, really freaked out, but, like, this time I wasn't, which was super weird for me. And I guess it was just because I wanted to be, like, as calm as possible, because I obviously didn't know what was going on, and I was having troubles breathing anyway, so I'm, like, trying to be, like, zen. And so like 3 hours pass, and they finally get my blood work done. Like, they finally come and get my blood work done, and, like, the whole time I have the monitor on, I'm, like, sitting on, like, the most uncomfortable bed ever. Apparently I got the broken one because I had to be in room 1 because all the other beds were full with people having babies. And so I was just, like, trying to stay calm, and my phone was dead. It was at 20%, and my phone does not last long. And so I was like, Jesus Christ, I can't even use social media to do things. I can't go on YouTube. I can't do anything. I'm literally just sitting in this bed with nothing. No book, no iPad, nothing. Just chilling on the bed. And that really, really sucked. I mean, to be honest, it felt shorter than what it was. Like, I was lucky that it passed time that way. But basically I get my blood drawn, so it's like 3:40. I get my blood drawn, and so, like, still obviously waiting for the blood results. And then at, like, 4 o'clock, the nurse like looks down and is checking my chart, like the fetal monitor, and she's like, do you have any cramping going on? And I'm like, no, I don't feel it anyways. And she's like, you look like you're having contractions. And I'm like, okay, I don't feel like I'm having contractions, but I feel really nauseous. So do you think it's the nausea that's like a symptom of the contraction? She's like, yeah, you're like full on having contractions. Like, I'm seeing them go up and up and up. And I'm like, she's like showing me on a thing. And I'm like, oh, okay. And she's like, so how do you feel? I'm like, I feel okay. And she's like, okay. So the doctor comes in, my on-call doctor, she finally comes in, and she's like, hey, like, I'm here, like, sorry, I've been delivering babies. I'm like, oh, it's okay, I totally understand. And I'd never met her before. She's at my office, and there's like 10 different doctors at my office. But anyways, she came in and she was talking to me about it and how I was feeling. And the nurse is like, yeah, she's having contractions, and what should we do? And so the doctor was like, okay, well, we're still waiting on your blood results to see if you're cleared of everything. And your urine test came back normal, so I obviously didn't have anything wrong there. And then she was just like, okay, well, once the blood gets back, we'll see what's going on. Can you tell me how you're feeling? I'm like, I'm still having like waves of really unwellness. So like at this point, I'm like still consistent of what it was like in the morning, but I was getting waves of really, really unwell. And now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, maybe the waves of really unwell were actually just the contractions, and I just have a high pain tolerance. Because like, honestly, it came in waves. But like, it was not simultaneously with the hard breathing. Like, when I have a contraction, the hard breathing wasn't happening. So it was like weird that it was happening after the contraction. So I don't really know what was going on there. And yeah, so like she was like, okay, well, we'll just wait for the blood results. And then like an hour later, the blood results finally came in. It like took like 3 hours to get the blood results because it was so behind. And so it's like 6 p.m. Oh no, like 5:30. It's like 5:30, around 5:30. And she comes in, she's like, your blood is normal. Like, I don't really know what's going on. They also gave me an ACG, totally normal. My heart looked normal. And like the entire time, she's like, maybe we'll just give you a monitor to take home to see if you have an arrhythmia in your heart, and maybe that's what's causing the breathing. I'm like, okay. She's like, I've never given it to a pregnant person before, but we'll try it. I'm like, okay. And then like, that obviously never happened. Like, she never ended up giving me a monitor. But she was just like, I don't understand. Like, your blood's coming back normal. You still feel unwell, and now you're having contractions. And then, like, at like 5 o'clock, my contractions were getting so painful. Like, literally, it went from not feeling them at all to being like, wow, I'm feeling them. Like, and the nurse was like, wow, your contractions are coming very close together. And so she like left the room. I could tell something was up, and she like left the room, and she like obviously talked to my doctor, because my doctor came in and she's like, yeah, I think you might be in labor. And I'm like, really? And what? I came in here for stars and for feeling somewhat unwell, and now all of a sudden I have contractions. All of a sudden now you're telling me I might be in labor? What is going on? Like, I was so unexpected. I'd been there for 5.5 hours already. I'm like, what the heck is going on? So she's like, okay, well, I have to go really quick. I'll be back, and we're gonna do the speculum, and we will do swab tests. And these swab tests will tell us whether or not if you're in early labor or not. I'm like, okay, sure. And so she leaves, and I'm just like, oh my god. I did not expect this. My hospital bag is not packed. I have nothing here. Tyler's still at work. What? I could be having a baby right now. And keep in mind, I'm 32 weeks and 5 days. I don't even, like, not even, I think it was 4 days. And I'm like, what is going on? I, like, couldn't really process it. I was kind of in shock. I was like, no, there's no way I'm having a baby today. But then the nurse was just like, yeah, like, sometimes this happens. And I'm like, what? Just, like, you come in and then, like, all of a sudden you have labor contractions? It was so weird. And so I'm just waiting. I'm waiting for her to do the test. And I'm like, these contractions are getting worse and worse as they go. And I'm like, what is going on? Like, so, oh yeah, and like before my contractions, they'd given me antacid to see if it was antacid that was causing the breathing, and Tylenol for inflammation. None of it did a difference. So I wonder if the Tylenol stopped me from feeling the contractions at the very beginning. I don't know, because I was having contractions apparently the whole time and didn't know. Anyways, so like it's like 6 p.m. and she comes in and she's like, hey, we're gonna do this and do the speculum exam. And oh my god, was that the most uncomfortable feeling ever. I literally have had this done before, but it was nowhere near as painful. And I don't know if it's because of my miscarriage or because of where he is right now. But I really, really had a tough time in that speculum exam. Like, I was like, damn, I guess if this hurts, I'm gonna need an epidural. Like, I don't really know what to do here. Like, I'm like sitting there the whole time. I'm freezing, by the way. I have no pants on or anything because I'm like in a gown. I'm freezing. I'm shaking. My legs are shaking on the freaking stirrups or whatever they're called. And I'm like so sorry. I'm shaking for some reason. Probably a mix of emotions and like just how cold I was in there. And like she checks me and she does the swabs, and oh my god, so uncomfortable. I was in like a mild moderate pain, but more like mild, and it was like so uncomfortable. I literally was like, wow, get me the fuck out of here. Like, this is like 3 minutes makes me feel like it's been 30 minutes. Like, it was so long feeling. And I guess like my contractions too weren't helping this at all. And she, like, as she's doing the exam, she's like, yeah, like, you're 1 centimeter dilated. And I'm just like, what? I'm dilated? What do you mean? And she's like, yeah, I just did like the finger test and I'm pretty sure you're dilating, and yeah, so we'll see what these swabs say. And I'm like, then it really hit me. I'm like, holy shit, like, am I having a freaking baby tonight? Like, I was like, what is going on? I came in here for such an unrelated reason, and I guess they weren't unrelated. Maybe they were related together. Like, you know what I mean? Like, maybe they were symptoms of labor that just are very uncommon. Anyways, she's like, yeah, so we're gonna see what these test results say. And I'm like, oh my god, okay. And she's like, so these test results, they are either positive or negative, and if it's positive, that means you're having your kid. And I'm like, okay. And if it's negative, then we'll probably send you home. And I'm like, okay. And so she leaves, and we're waiting for the test results. It takes like 2 hours to wait for these things. Like, they said, oh, it's gonna be so fast. Like, these come back easy. I'm like, okay. And it, like, literally was still 2 hours to wait. Almost just as long as my blood work. And she comes in at some point, and she's like, so tell me more about like your eye stuff. And I'm like, okay. And so I, like, you guys know if you watched my previous videos, week 23 and there's another story one. Go check my channel, and I'll link it down below. But basically I have like some black dots happening in my left eye that was causing like a lot of blurriness in my right eye. And so she's like, maybe it's eye related. It could be your vitreous detachment. And I'm like, I don't know if that would cause a star. She's like, well, we've got to check. So she tried to call a on-call ophthalmologist, and he obviously was too busy, so he couldn't come in. So she's like, okay, well, it could be eye related, and I don't know what to say about your contractions because we haven't gotten the test results yet. I'm like, okay, sounds good. So I'm like telling Tyler, I'm like, can you please come here, please? Because like they're telling me I'm a centimeter dilated, and I don't really know what's going on, what's gonna happen. And he's like, yeah, I'll come. He had finally gotten off work, and he wasn't gonna come if it was negative, but I'm like, no, can you just come? Because like I don't want to be alone here anymore. It's been 7 hours in this hospital by myself with no phone. Can you please just come here? Like, I need you to be here. He comes, and then the doctor comes in, and she's like, your tests were negative. And I'm like, okay, so I'm not having a baby today. And she was like, yeah, but like these tests are unreliable. Basically these tests tell you whether or not you're having a baby within the next 10 days. And if it's 11 or 12 days, you won't even know because the test only picks up 10. And I'm like, okay. So you're telling me I could have a baby 11 or 12 days from now. I'm 1 centimeter dilated and you're sending me home. And so she was like, yeah, so I guess it's a good thing he's still staying in you. And I'm like, yeah, that is a good thing, like for his health and everything. And for like my unpreparedness, like I was not expecting that. Like Tyler came with the hospital bag. I'm like, pack all this stuff because I don't even know what's going on right now. Like, you gotta find out these things. And I was so hungry too, and he didn't get a chance to stop at the store. I literally was starving because I'm allergic to gluten and dairy, and that's all the hospital has. So they were giving me apples. That's all I ate for fucking 7 hours. And well, actually it was 8 hours at this point because Tyler finally got there. They told us the results, and it was 8 p.m. at night, and we didn't leave the hospital until like 8:45. So I'd been there for so long without food, and yeah, they told us that like it could be eye related. They booked me an appointment for an eye exam the next day, and then she's like, well, because your cervix looks really, really thin and you're centimeter dilated, we need ultrasounds. And I'm like, okay, sounds good, whatever. And yeah, that happened on Friday. Like, I literally was in so much shock. I was like dilated and could possibly having a kid. Like, I was like, what is going on? Like, it was so shocking to me, like so shocking. I couldn't believe it. I then was just like, okay, I'm going home. I'm finally gonna eat. Yes. So we ordered Bid 4, and it was the best burger ever. It probably had to do with the fact that I hadn't eaten all day, but like it was definitely the best burger. Like, oh my god, they did a phenomenal job on it. I was like, fuck yeah, this is what I deserve. I've been in the hospital for 8 hours. Could have had a baby. But yeah, so we had that, and my contractions were still happening. Like, they weren't as severe as they were when I was at the hospital, but they were still there, and they were still kicking it, and I was like, oh my god. So then that was Friday. A whirlwind of freaking emotions and like experiences. Being hooked up to that monitor for literally 8 hours was so tough on my body. I was like trying to sit up a lot more, and like apparently when I stood up, my contractions got a lot worse. They were like, yeah, your contractions are like a lot worse standing, which normally isn't a thing. I'm like, oh great. So at that point I thought I was in labor, and it was just like so shocking to think that like, oh my god, I could be having a baby right now. I was so not prepared. I'm like, I've barely done my exercises, my Kegel exercises, and I'm like, I had a miscarriage and I barely worked on my pelvic floor. Like, I need time to exercise. Like, I still need time. And not to mention, I don't have everything for the baby. I still need to get his medical supplies. I still need to get his, like, bathtub, his towels, his air purifier, the humidifier, just random ass shit. I still need to get all my postpartum stuff. There's no way I was gonna be happy with having to leave the hospital without any of my postpartum stuff. That would have sucked. I would have had to order it, wait for it, and just like deal with what I had. So I'm thankful I didn't have a baby. And it was just like a crazy day, and like honestly, like we sat in bed and like Tyler was just like, I kind of hoped he was coming, and I'm like, you're crazy, because we're real early and we don't got everything, and like of course he doesn't need everything all at once. Obviously he just needs love and to be changed and to be fed, but it was just like one of those stressful moments, like shit, like I don't even have everything yet. So that was Friday. Saturday I ended up doing my tests, and so I'm gonna cut this video off and do a part 2 because this story is so long and I've already gone over the time limit for this, and it's just like there's so much happened within 24 hours, and I'm literally gonna be on my way in literally 30 minutes to go back to my doctor's office to get more results. So I'm gonna do 2 parts of this video. I'll talk about Saturday, and then I'll talk about today, which is Tuesday, about my results from Saturday. I just like can't believe it. Like I said, like the last couple of days have been just like such a weird time, and like just like shocking, really. Like I'm 33 weeks today. I'm like, holy crap, like, and I'm already dilated. So I know like a lot of the time women can be dilated for weeks and weeks and not progress, but like the fact that my cervix is super thin, and like what had happened on Saturday, I'll explain to you, really tells me that he's actually coming early, and it's not gonna be like weeks of being 1 centimeter dilated. So I will update you guys on part 2 of this video. I will do it when I get back from my doctor's appointment, and then I'll upload the second version of this video either the next day or the day after, just to give a little bit of spacing, and they're also going to be very long videos. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this so far. I am basically just devouring my story and kind of like giving you my insight of what happened to me during the hospital time, and yeah, so really crazy. So I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.